budget and your timing and counting that we're working on to make that a goal for the branches here to make it counting as large. So Bob Dixon has some wonderful testimonies. I'll just turn the time over to him. Um, I haven't had an opportunity actually to see this segment. I know about FSM, but I have heard a couple of his testimonies and that this ministry has brought me. So I'll turn it over to you, Bob.
unto the people. This is a pretty fancy device, but the pastor showed me how to use it. The idea of the ministry is to free individuals from the bondage of debt. We recently helped a sister, a widow. We helped her in various ways. But brothers and sisters, she was paying on debt. And would somebody here like to guess what the interest rate might have been that she was paying? Guess high. 35? 10 times that. Sister was paying 350% interest. She would have never, ever gotten out of the bondage of that debt. Scriptures tell us a lot about what we should be doing. Doctrine and Covenants, section 101:2. And behold, this is the way that I, the Lord, have decreed to provide for my saints, that the poor shall be exalted, in that the rich are made low. For the earth is full, and there is enough and to spare. For the earth is full, and there is enough to spare. That tells me that there's no reason why we should have people in our communities and in our church that do not have enough. When we finally, there's enough, the Lord has provided enough. That means there are some that have too much, and there are some that don't have any. When we decided to move up here, Janet was not even with me. Guys, don't do this. I picked the house, and she hadn't seen it. And the day we moved up there was the day she saw the home, and she was thrilled about it. But I came up that weekend, and we live out in Grain Valley. Went to church in Bates City the first night after we had purchased our home. Went to church in Bates City, and I assumed at 7 o'clock in the evening there'd probably be a sermon. I wanted to join the saints. It was not a sermon, it was a class, and guess what the subject was? Stewardship. And one sister got up and testified in tears, which was a testimony to me, that if she paid her rent, she could not pay her utilities. And if she paid her utilities, she could not make her car payment. And brothers and sisters, I stand before you and tell you that is not right. The Lord has provided plenty. There's plenty, and there's no reason. The Lord tells us that the poor should be exalted. If you look at section 42 of the Doctrine and Covenants, it tells us that we should be caring for the poor. And we will be condemned if we do not do so. And we've got brothers and sisters out there today that cannot pay their rent. Our two congregations come together and provide food for a lot of people, and that's a wonderful ministry that we provide every other Tuesday. God bless you for helping, and God bless us for helping also. But there's no reason why we need to have people that are out there suffering. And we meet with families, and they're at one another's throats because of the bondage that they're under. Bondage that comes from Satan. Bondage that keeps your families, if you're well-to-do, from sharing with those families that do not have. And that's the ministry that the Lord opened up to us. What we decided we were going to do is we were going to, first of all, get together with families that would raise their hands for help and teach them the law of stewardship in the church. And the second thing we were going to do is get together with those families and teach them how to family budget. In many of our families, I've had people come to our kitchen table that needed help and lay out bills and just raise their hands. I don't know what to do. I don't know how in the world we're going to survive. Sometimes they are in serious conditions, sometimes not. And we sit down with those people and we teach them how to budget. We teach them, as I was growing up, I remember my dad as a bishop would preach all the time on the difference between needs and wants. And we're of the world today in this church almost as much as the world is. And we don't know the difference between what we need and what we want. And when you get to the point and you're bombarded with advertisements and all the media every day that you need this and you need that and you need that, that's how people get over their heads in debt. Thousands, tens of thousands of debt on credit cards. At least 29%, up to 350%. That's what our families are struggling under. We decided, let me not get and Zion cannot be built unless it is by the principles of the law of the celestial kingdom. Otherwise, I cannot receive her into myself. What we decided our ministry was going to be, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, and then I want to give you opportunities to ask whatever questions you have. And Janet's going to watch the clock for me. We've got 30 minutes. We decided we were going to put together a board of branches, representative from branches. And I've given this presentation in virtually every branch in the center place and many branches outside of the center place. And branches that have the vision that we're trying to share are allowed to provide a representative to our board. And our board runs Freedom Stewardship Ministries. It's as simple as that. They tell us how to go about doing what we're doing and what to do and what not to do, and it's worked out very well. I'll give you more testimonies. Brother Joe Burkhart, Bishop of the Church, has put together a class. If you go out to Conference of Restoration Elders website, you'll see in the masthead, you'll see Freedom Stewardship Ministries. You click on that, you'll see all of our materials. Brother Burkhart has put together a 90-minute video, and it's led off by about 15 minutes by a brother that came from Focus on the Family, and he tells us what the scriptures have to say about living in debt, in the bondage of debt. And then Brother Joe goes into a 1-hour deal about stewardship. And if you're ever interested in seeing that material, just pull up CRE and hit Freedom Stewardship Ministries, and there it is. Any family that we look to help is required to go through the video, which generally speaking, I will sit with them when they go through the video and answer questions that they have. Joe did a beautiful job, but families have questions about budgeting. How do you budget? How in the world do I pay my tithing when I don't seem like I have enough money to pay for my food? Questions like that we try to help them with. The first step of Freedom Stewardship Ministry is education. The second step of Freedom Stewardship Ministries is refinancing of debt. And when we got together at our first meeting, I'll just never forget, it was out at the CRE office, and we tried to, how in the world do we do this? How are we going to do this? How in the world are we going to raise the money to help families pay off their debt? Brothers and sisters, that has not been the problem. The saints, in all their generosity, some of whom I don't even know, some from remote parts of this country and world, have donated and donated and donated Freedom Stewardship Ministries. Families that I've met with say, God bless you. I didn't know what to do with my tithing money. People that are remote, don't have a branch. I didn't know what to do with our tithing money. They send in tens of thousands of dollars to Freedom Stewardship Ministry. Raising money has not been our problem. We've raised almost $160,000 at this point in time to share with brothers and sisters. What we determined to do with those funds, 100% of which go to the benefit of the saints that we help, is that we refinance their credit card debt. Any debt over $1,000 with an interest rate over 15%, that's what our board has directed us to do. We will refinance at zero interest. And we have saved, I'll read a testimony if I have time here today, of one of the sisters we helped, even from my branch. We have saved families hundreds of dollars a month, and we've saved families thousands of dollars over the terms of their credit card loans. Tens of thousands of dollars. 350%. How fast does that interest add up, brother? She was getting killed. This widow was getting killed by the world. She had a relatively new car. Her husband had passed away, so she'd lost almost all of his income. He had VA benefits. She had a new car, and the wolves in the world had sold her not one, but 2 warranties on her car. that she was paying $150 a month for each one. She only brought in less than $2,000 a month. Car was under original warranty. She was paying $250 a month for warranties. She's not paying those warranties anymore. The idea of Freedom Stewardship Ministries is, if I can get your family out of debt, then you can help the next family. If I can't pay off all your credit cards, I'll start with the smaller ones and move my way up and pay off the first one, free up your cash to start paying. You've heard of the, what do they call it? Snowball effect. You've probably, Dave Ramsey talks about the snowball effect, and it works for the families that we've helped. We pay off 2 or 3 of their debts. Usually, for a particular family, $10,000 to $15,000 we'll pay off in debt and take it from 30% to 0% interest. Just think what it saves that family. I've gone through most of this. I've done this a few times. I get ahead of myself on the slides. 10, I think the board changed it to 15% of all the funds that we collect from the saints, we keep in a rainy day fund. We actually had a family at the missionary branch that needed our help, and we refinanced all of their consumer debt at 0 interest, and the week after that, their car broke down. And he called me, the brother called me and said, I'm going to have to buy a car, but I'm going to have to borrow money to do it. We said, no, you don't have to borrow money to do it, because we've kept 15% of our funds back. We loaned him the money to fix his car, 0 interest. We keep that fund at all times. This is just a little example. I work with my brother Sean Turner, the pastor at missionary. He's a numbers guy. The guy's an accountant. I mean, the world has to have accountants, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, he's an accountant. And this is a real credit card bill for a family that had a credit card balance of $5,113. We've helped families that have 10 credit cards, maxed out. $51 minimum payment. They're never going to pay that credit card off. It's forward. Interest rate on that particular card was 18.25%. Credit amount $5,115. Term of the loan 228 months. If they make the minimum payment, take 228 months to pay it off. You can kind of see from the pie chart. I'm not good on pie charts, but you can figure out for themselves. Blue is if the bank finances you, and the orange is Freedom Stewardship Ministries. We not only save them a fortune in interest, we save them a fortune in time. We usually refinance families on 50 equal payments, 2% each payment. So in 50 months, the debts that we refinance are gone. They're able to move on to their next debt and their next debt. Okay, this is very small at the top. Gosh, I love to use this pointer. This line right here. Time comparison. If they'd paid off the bank 228 months to pay off that debt, stewardship terms 68 months. Actually, it's 50, because we do 50 now. This slide was put together early. They would have paid on that $5,000 credit card, if they'd have paid it according to bank terms, $11,000 interest. Freedom Stewardship Ministries currently, and I believe this is going to change, we incurred some expenses to begin with. Buy a computer and a printer and some furniture for our office. And so up to this time, we have charged a one-time 2.5%. If we refinance $1,000, we charge you a $25 fee, and that covers our expenses. The reason we do that is, if your family decides to donate to Freedom Stewardship Ministries, 100% of the money that you donate goes to a family, and the user's paying a 2.5% fee. I think we're going to do away with the 2.5% fee. I can't say that because a representative of your congregation and others will decide that. My recommendation is do away with the 2.5% completely free financing, because we've almost covered our startup costs. The cost of Freedom Stewardship. Vim Horn, if any of you went to the Elders Conference, smiled because we gave him our financials. Freedom Stewardship Ministries expenses and overhead last year were $73. We don't spend any money. That was postage and paper and ink. That's all. Everything else comes from the officers. That's what we save families. And multiply that by 3 or 4 or 5 times and you see how much families save. I'll answer one question that somebody probably would have had anyway. This is not a debt forgiveness program. I believe that that's the way the Lord would set up a program like this. If we make mistakes, the Lord by his grace forgives us, but sometimes we have a price to pay. We can't, first of all, we couldn't refinance everybody's debt on a forgiveness program because we wouldn't have the funds to do it. But we expect people to repay the loans that we refinance. They enter into a covenant. I'll be going through the covenant with you shortly, but there's no interest involved. They have to pay to get themselves out of the spot that they were in. Oftentimes we will, I know in our branch, we had one particular family that was really in a hard spot. They gathered into the Independence area. He lost his job as soon as he gathered. We refinanced about $10,000 worth of their debt, and oblation helped them another 5, got them out of the ditch. So sometimes there is oblation that works with Freedom Stewardship Ministries. The Stewardship Council, of which I'm the chairman, works closely with Freedom Stewardship Ministries, provides ongoing support to families that we help. And so sometimes oblation gets involved with Freedom Stewardship as well. We do not we do not have loan documents. We have a covenant with Freedom Stewardship Ministries. We have been loaning money now for 2 years. We've not had one delinquency. Obviously, we've had no defaults. Families are grateful for the help we give, and they're making their payments on time. Every one, every case. If a family could not make their payments, generally when a congregation supports Freedom Stewardship Ministries, which means nothing other than the fact that you would suggest families in your branch that could help us. Your pastor or counselors would call me and say, we've got a family that needs help. That's really all we require of a branch that supports Freedom Stewardship. No financial commitment, only help in finding people that need help, encouraging them to raise their hand, and perhaps involving ongoing counseling. We don't just loan money to a family at zero interest and forget about them. We loan money to families and continue to support them. One young woman that we helped was in particularly bad shape. She told my wife and I that she was a creditaholic. And she was. She couldn't go into Dillard's without buying. Everything she needed, everything. And she had a lot of credit card debt. She told us she was a creditaholic. I'm going to read her testimony to you before I quit today. She's carved up all of her credit cards. She hasn't borrowed one dime in the last 2 years. And Janet calls her on a regular basis, say how I'm in one of these, what do you call it, Weight Watcher deal? What do you call it? Biggest Loser deals. You could probably see why. And I have a brother at our branch that needs help with Weight Watchers, and I call him every week, and he calls me. That's what we do for some of these families if they need it. We'll call them weekly if we have to. How did you do last week? Were you able to get by without credit card debt? Do you need us to sit down with you and help you with your budget? Are you living within your budget? Those are the kind of ongoing supports. It's not just loan the money and forget the families. Doesn't work. As I said, if somebody can't make their payments, we like to have, if possible, in a branch that supports us, to have an Aaronic priesthood member that will help us and sit down with the families. If they can't make their payments, they'll be counseled. If they still can't make their payments, we move on. Regulatory agencies. I talked to a brother in Jefferson City before we got started. I think he was a Christian. I asked him if he was going to buy. I'm pretty used to, in the banking industry, regulatory agencies running the business. The regulatory agencies in Jeff City said, God bless you, we're not going to bother with you. So that was a blessing for us. Debt of $1,000, 15% interest. It says you have to be a member of a participating branch in order for Freedom Stewardship to help you. Our board has changed that policy now. We'll help any member of any restoration branch that has a problem with debt. The commitments, and if I have time, I'll read you the covenant, but someone that we help with their debt is really their desires to stay out of consumer debt. We don't ask, in the real world, we don't ask people to cut up all their credit cards, maybe keep one. Kind of hard to live these days if you don't have a credit card. It's hard to fly. It's hard to do a lot of things. But if you use your credit card, use it for necessities and pay it off every month. That's the commitment they make to us. They have to complete all prescribed education classes and continue education, plus the additional covenants that the board should uphold, of which we have none. Okay, I'm not going to go through the frequently asked questions unless you have some questions, but I thought I'd take just a minute to read to you a couple of testimonials that I asked families that we've helped to write so I could present it to the Elders Conference. By the way, when we help a family, it's anonymous. Nobody other than the 5 officers of Freedom Stewardship Ministry know the identity of anybody that we help. Even the board does. Even the affiliate board does not know the families that we help. Only the pastor of the branch they come from and the officers of Freedom Stewardship Ministries, because we vote on whether or not to accept a request for refinancing. We were asked to write a testimony of how FSM has helped us in our time of need. The following is that testimony. About a year and a half ago or so, we found ourselves in the midst of a financial crisis. We do not like using credit, but sometimes it is a necessity. Our house windows were all broken, and then the heater air conditioner decided it was going to give up the ghost. So that landed us with 2 bills we really didn't want or couldn't afford. Then you have children, and we had to financially help one of them out of a bad situation. As a parent, whether you have the money or not, you find a way to help your child. We heard about the program at church for the financial help in learning how to become a better steward with our money. We reached out to one of the members and inquired about how we might get the much-needed help. After some questions and counsel, we were granted the help we needed to get us into a more manageable situation. This, by the way, is the family that we also had oblation, in addition to about $11,000 in Freedom Stewardship help, got this family out of debt. Don't get me wrong, it isn't free money. We're on a pay plan to pay it back, and we meet with the member to get updates on our progress from time to time. The program is to help in times of need and teach us how to get out of debt and stay out of debt. To this day, we no longer use credit cards. We cut up the ones that come in as renewals, and if we cannot pay cash for them, we do not get it. We eat out less. A lot of the families that we help, eating out is one of their problems. You know, it costs 2 to 3 to 4 times to eat out what it costs you at home. And families that can't afford it are spending hundreds of dollars a month eating out. We talk to them about that. We counsel them. We've planted the garden to supplement some of our food costs. We keep a record of our spending and limit our wants. I want to thank the members of FSM for this program and the help you have given God's people. We are, in my opinion, growing closer to Zion. We helped a family. Brother Mundy got a call one day from a family. The wife was a member of our church. The husband was a Baptist, active Baptist. They had a problem with their debt, and they called us. She called us. She attends one of our branches and asked if we could help. Brian and I went by. And I wish I would have taped that conversation. Brother Brian, who's done this for a long time, counseled them so beautifully on how to pay their tithing and how the Lord would provide for them. We know the blessings. He would open the windows of heaven for us. And then went down through their family budget. We found out what they brought home, went down through their budget. These things are all anonymous. And we left that evening. They didn't finalize their request for help. About 2 weeks later, The sister, a member of our church, called Brian back and said, "My husband doesn't think this is real." He said, "Why in the world would somebody from the Restoration Church want to help a Baptist get out of debt? Would you come back again?" So we went back over to their house a second time, went through the program again. And before that evening was done, they requested that we help them with their debt. We refinanced all of their consumer debt. About 2 weeks after that, the sister called Brian and said that her husband had asked for a copy of the Book of Mormon. Brothers and sisters, we have to judge ministries like this by the fruit. I'm going to read you one more testimony, but that's a brother that we're going to convert into our church, into the gospel, simply because we reached out and were willing to help. My past financial situation caused me a lot of anxiety and discouragement. It really did for this young woman. For years, I've felt burdened down. She's from a family, generations in the church, faithful in the church. For years, I've felt burdened down, ashamed, and guilty of my stewardship with my finances and what God has provided for me. I rarely was able to make ends meet and would often pay my required minimum payment to my credit card and turn right around and spend it before the next month's minimum payment was due. It was a vicious cycle. The credit cards I had were maxed out. There were several. It was a stronghold that was over me to use my credit cards to go shopping and fill that empty hole in my life where I needed Jesus the most. At times, it felt like an addiction. It was an addiction. This is a young woman that said she had credit card addiction. I am so thankful to FSM and the ministry they have provided. Don't need to thank FSM. Thank the Lord Jesus Christ. That's where the ministry comes from. When I came to them, I was lost and very discouraged. God has provided peace to me in many different situations in areas of my life at times. I can say I never did feel that gentle peace when it came to my finances until Freedom Stewardship. I've learned with Freedom Stewardship to be accountable to God most of all, but also to the team at FSM. Doesn't need to feel accountable to us. She's accountable to the Lord for her stewardship. They have provided encouragement, support, as well as accountability as I strive to change those habits and patterns that have caused me so much financial grief over the years. I can say I have peace now, and I've seen God work in my life as I've strived to become a better steward over my finances. Since FSM has helped me, I have those testimonies where it is close to payday. I do not have that much in the bank, and a check will arrive in the mail that I was not expecting. And it will provide what I need until payday. I feel God's love wash over me. I love the scripture in section 6:3 about seeking not for riches but for wisdom, and that have eternal life will make you rich. That is the best kind of rich. Now as you have asked, behold, I say unto you, keep my commandments and seek to bring forth and establish the cause of Zion. Seek not for riches but for wisdom, and behold, the mysteries of God shall unfold before you, and then you shall be made rich. This sister is free of the discouragement she has. Janet calls her from time to time. She hasn't ever used her credit card again. She was the first person we helped. It's been almost 2 years. One second. We are here for a couple reasons. If this branch wishes to endorse Freedom Stewardship, that's fine. That simply means you would put a member on our board of directors, and you would help us set policy, and you would provide encouragement to your members. The pastor and Tom, I know, would find family. You know, the problem we've had was one that I had not anticipated. The problem we've had in Freedom Stewardship is people are hesitant to raise their hand and say, I need help. Nobody, particularly in the area of finances, people don't like to raise their hand and say, I've made mistakes. I need help. We're called upon to do that. We're called upon to raise our hands and let our brothers and sisters help. We've got people around the church that are dying to help. Send their money in faithfully every week. Our funds got low just a while back. from refinancings. And we received a $10,000, the same day, we received a $10,000 check from a family in far northwest Nebraska. Didn't even have a branch to attend. Read about us in the Tidings of Zion. The same day, we received a $14,000 check from a family in the state of Washington. Didn't know either of those families. What we need is families that are in need and suffering to raise their hand anonymously to your pastor and ask for help. We'll be there the next day to help. Questions, brother?
Try to find out. I was going to ask what we could do. So you said a representative on the board, and you said, do you need more money? Do you need man hours, people to help with that? Or what's your greatest need from the branches?
The greatest need is families that need help. Identify families that need help. I know there are families that need help. Now, we've counseled a couple of families that have read the covenant, and I just outlined the covenant for you. They basically have to agree that they're going to not use credit cards, not going to rely on credit cards for wants. And if they do rely on a credit card, they pay it off monthly. They covenant to do that. And they covenant when they get out of debt to help another get out of debt. And so what we need is, I would love to have your branch support, which would give us a rep from your branch, and hopefully an Aaronic priesthood member to help counsel your families. That's what we need. You know, money's coming in from people. A lot of our branches have us listed on their envelopes, and we receive money from people on a week. Yes, back here.
Wait, didn't you say you were short of money?
No, we were at one time, and the Lord provided. We now have, we've received almost $160,000 from the saints, and we've loaned out, I want to say in my mind, $75,000, maybe $80,000. We've got funds. We're ready to help families immediately. Yeah, I just got the 5-minute warning. Who else? Please. Sometimes we'll make a presentation and people will have questions they don't ask, and I'll call the pastor and say, what did your branch feel like? Well, we had this concern and this concern. If you have questions, ask them. We got 5 minutes. If not, that's fine too. Huh? Yeah. Call me at any time. I'm the pastor at Living Hope. You know how to get a hold of me. Yes.
I just want to say I'm thankful this is happening. Ron and I have been married 56 years, and we had to learn this the hard way. We came from two really dysfunctional families, and so we just kind of jumped in the pond to see if we could swim. And there were many, many years of suffering. And I'm really pleased the restoration is doing something like this.
Thank you. Yes. Brother Eric Odita told us, he came to conference a couple of years ago when we were actually approved, and he said he was so grateful to be able to go back to Kenya and tell his people that the church is actually doing something. And before I ask this question, let me tell you this much. Everybody in this room has a gift from the Lord Jesus Christ. Mine was financial. I had many years' experience. He calls you into the ministry where you have your gift. If we're going to get to Zion, freedom stewardship is a little piece of it, but we got a lot of pieces. And we need to settle in our hearts that we're going to start sacrificing for the Lord Jesus and giving our gifts for the sake of the kingdom. The sake of the kingdom I'm going to preaching now is not very far off. And if we want to be involved, brothers and sisters, we need to get going now. Or we're going to be on the sidelines looking in. Brother.
I'd first like to say I think it's awesome that you shared the testimony about the Baptists being converted. That's not very easy to do.
No. No.
I was just wondering.
It's easy for the Lord Jesus Christ, though.
Yeah. I was just wondering, how often do you get someone that does not pay their loan back to you?
Never. Never has happened.
It's never happened.
Never had
Everyone
a past due.
pays their
Never
loan.
had a past due payment more than 5 days. Never had to call anybody for a payment. They're always there, back in the back.
I do have one question. What happens if they don't? Sounded like you said that nothing happens if they don't end up paying.
They get counseled. They'll get counseled, hopefully by their pastor and the Aaronic representative from their branch. If there's somebody that gets past due from this branch, I will be making a call to the pastor, and I'll let him know. We haven't had it happen yet, but that's what would happen. And then perhaps I and the pastor would meet with this family. There's a reason if somebody's not making a payment. Everybody we've helped has been more than grateful. But people get in the ditch again. And maybe it'll be like the family we had out at Missionary Branch that their car blew up right after we'd helped them. If we hadn't known that, they would have gone out into the world again for a loan. But we helped them. So if somebody's not paying us, there's a reason for it. Now, we should be close enough to the families we're helping that we should know that. And we should be able to help them. Sister?
How many have you denied?
One. We've denied one. And I can't go into the details, but we had a suggestion for that particular family where they had a lot of debt. And there was a way for them to resolve their problem. And as a banker, I knew what that way was, and I suggested that way. And I said, if you help yourself, then we will be behind you to help you. Now, I've got to be honest with you, that's not the approach I would have taken, but that's the way the officers voted, so that's what we did. This family has subsequently taken our advice, and they're free of debt. So it worked out. It worked out. But only one. Now, we've had families that we've counseled and never heard back from. Because, you know, this idea of not using credit cards for things I want, it's tough. That's a tough one. And I only have to assume that maybe is why, and there have been 2 or 3 families that we've counseled, gone through the budgeting, and have not heard back from them. So, you know, you have to be if you're an alcoholic, you got to be ready, or you're not going to, if you're a fataholic, you got to be ready, or you're not going to lose that weight. Anybody else before we close? Yes, brother up here. Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate that.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say I'm very thankful to hear that this ministry is going forth, and I really would be behind it all the way.
God bless. If I got a minute, I want to tell you about one other development that's going on. Did you have something?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I just want to tell you that a lot of times people come and think that they're overwhelmed with stuff, and it is true, because they don't understand the laws of stewardship, or we teach our kids everything, we don't teach them how to handle money. So there's been times where he had sat down with these families and found out that they were not as bad off as they thought. So if you have someone that's knowledgeable in that field, then you talk to them. Sometimes they can clear that quagmire and they can move on. You've counseled many people without even having to give them a loan, just giving them ideas and suggestions and things. So that's also an option as well.
If there's somebody in the sound of my voice that needs help, all you have to do is call. The help will be there for you. One final thing, just so you guys are aware, I think one of the greatest assets we have in our church is CPRS. CPRS has needs. I'm on the foundation board. We are putting together a video to make people aware of the needs that CPRS has. I'm on the board of the foundation, and we're trying to raise a lot of money to help CPRS. And the goal is we're going to try and get teacher salaries up to where they should be. We have so many teachers over the years that have ministered and provided a stewardship to their students, but haven't really gotten paid much for it, have no health insurance unless their spouse has it. You're going to be seeing the video. I'm going to be bringing the video over here one of these days and let you see it. It's really professional, and it's going to explain the need of CPRS and the goals of the foundation. We're going to raise millions of dollars for the benefit of CPRS and get CPRS on a strong footing and get their teachers and their staff paid. And that'll be coming shortly. I just wanted you to hear that. God bless you all. Thank you, Andrew, for letting us come.